Cardenas, and perceptual distortions could be anything that can mess with how you see things. So it could be a distortion of time, so time can slow down or time can move faster. There can be a misinterpretation of sensory information, so you could have heightened senses, or they could be lessened, so you could see things, or you could have what they call tunnel vision. And in the workplace, when it comes to forming perceptions of new managers, a couple of things could be stereotyping. So they could look at the new manager and they can immediately just start thinking, they look like this, so they must do this. Or they look like they could be this, so they might act like this. And that can alter someone's perspective of the new manager that's coming in and how they will choose to treat them or how they will choose to comment about them. Another one could be a single observation that could throw off their entire perception. And one of those could be, they could see a negative trait. They could see that the manager failed to notice this, or the manager failed to do this. For example, at my old job, somebody could have seen me fail to greet a customer or talk to a customer, and they can immediately think, I'm not fit to do the job, or I don't care enough about the job to treat all the customers the way that they should be treated, and that could make them think that I'm not fit to be in the role, or I'm not good enough to be listened to, or not deserving of the respect that they choose to give me. And that can really affect how a workplace runs. And lastly, the personality of the manager could alter the way that people perceive them. So they could hear something, or they could see that the way the manager is acting and not like it, which could lead to them, the single trait altering the perspective. It could make them feel that they don't deserve the respect, or they don't deserve to be listened to or understood in that sense, which could lead to a hostile environment, and it could lead to a toxic work environment. So it's more gossiping and complaining about this new manager and how they shouldn't have to listen to them and how they shouldn't have to feel like that should be their boss. So those are the perceptual distortions that I feel employees are most likely to have when it comes to a new manager entering a workplace. It could be a little bit different based on promotion-wise, somebody that worked with them that gets promoted into that new job. But if it's a new manager coming in that hasn't already worked with everybody, I think those perceptual distortions could really alter how the workplace runs in the future. Describe what you could do in a difficult work situation to protect yourself from falling prey to fundamental attribution error. That kind of works with the perspective, or the perception, rather. You could pull the employee aside and be like, hey, listen, I want to understand what you saw and how you interpreted it, because I understand that I failed to do this, or I failed to show you how to properly execute it this way. And I think that could change the perspective overall. For example, when you walk into a place and you see the manager is not there, and you ask for them and they say, oh yeah, they're just in the back, that could lead to a couple of issues because the employees feel that the manager isn't working on the line with them, and it feels as though that the manager is superior and they don't feel like they have to work with them. But in my opinion, I feel that builds that connection and that builds that trust with your employees, just because it shows them that I'm willing to learn with you and I'm willing to coach you so that we can all meet at one area and be on the same page. In difficult situations like that, I think, like I said prior, the best thing that you could do is pull them aside and have a genuine conversation and be like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. This is not what I was trying to do. I want to show you how to properly do it, and I will work better on it in the future. And just reiterate that that's not typically what you do, and you don't ever want to have anybody witness that again, just because it looks bad on you, and then it could alter how people view you in the future and how they choose to respect you in the future. And that's really big in the work environment, because you want everybody to be on the same page. You want everybody to be civil and cordial no matter the situation, and you want them to feel like they should be comfortable enough where if there were a situation where the manager wasn't there, they could step back and be able to really be aware of how they're feeling and how they can better act in a future scenario similar, or how to avoid the scenario altogether. Number 3, praise can be a type of positive reinforcement. So 3 additional positive reinforcements that can be used or that are used in the workplace could be the positive feedback, providing the employee with opportunities within the job, and personalizing the reinforcement, the feedback, the praise. All of that can be used in the workplace that don't just fall under the praise category. So the positive feedback, you can pull them aside, or you can say it in front of them and be like, hey, so-and-so is doing such a great job. They are executing all of our standards, they're executing all of the ethics, and they're really setting the standard for how the brand should be, and they're really meeting us where we want them to be. And they are showing great improvement while working with us, and I think that they deserve a little bit of a pat on the back or a round of applause, something like that. But it also allows you as the manager to really look at everybody and be like, hey, you're doing a really good job, but this is where you can improve, and this is how you can improve. Or you can simply just walk up to an employee and be like, you're doing a really great job, keep up the good work. When an employee is doing exceptionally well, it's even better to provide them with career opportunities, so future promotions or more job openings that can give them more experience, that can show them the ropes of how to properly be in the business, and not the role that they were at, but a higher up role, if anything. Like for me at my old job, I got a lot of praise for how hard I was working, and then I got promoted to like a team lead position, and it was a really good opportunity for me, and it showed me that My team thought I was worth it, and the team thought that I was doing a great job, and they could trust me, and they could listen to me, and they know that I'm not going to be one of those managers where they're not nice, or they won't praise you, or they won't tell you that you're doing a good job. And then that follows more onto the positive reinforcement, where you, or not the positive reinforcement, the personalized reinforcement. So you tell them exactly what they're doing and how good they're doing and what the team expects them to do, or the standards of what they're doing and how they're meeting it. So for me, I was promoted to like head of catering. So I was told that I was doing a really good job keeping everything in order, keeping everything clean, and setting a good plan for how to execute our catering orders. And they said that I was a really good, like I had a really good head on my shoulders for the position, and they would like to offer it to me. And I think that made me feel proud of myself as well as the team that I have worked with and have like earned the trust and respect of while I was working there. And I think that's essential for any team, especially with keeping them motivated and keeping them with the feeling of appreciation that they want. When an employee feels that they're doing a good job, or that the bosses see what they're doing and appreciate them, they feel more okay with making mistakes or asking for help. And that makes it more of a healthy environment, especially when it comes to making small mistakes. People shouldn't be afraid to make small mistakes, and if they are, then that kind of sets the tone of how a future business can be run, where people are afraid to make mistakes simply because of the reinforcement or the feedback that they may or may not get in the future. I personally find it motivating when I get personalized feedback or personalized reinforcement, because it shows me what I'm doing, how I'm doing it well, and how I can coach others on doing it the way that I do, so we can meet the standards, meet the numbers, we can create a team, we can set an environment of teamwork, of communication, and of motivation in the future. Joining a company where managers regularly reprimand in front of others and play favorites. The social cognitive theory, the sort of company culture that is likely to spring from that would be reciprocal determinism. So reciprocal determinism is when a team observes what is happening and what employees are being favored and which ones are being reprimanded, and they are going to reciprocate and copy exactly what the positive, the favored employees are doing. So it's going to set a tone of kind of like robots, in my opinion. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody is avoiding taking any risks within the business. They're avoiding making any mistakes, so they're not doing any big projects. They're sticking to the easy, simple, basic stuff so they can simply just be favored and appreciated by a boss. With that causes a hostile environment simply because people are afraid to ask for help, with the fear of being reprimanded or being reported by other coworkers for making mistakes. So people would avoid asking for help or asking any questions about how to properly do something, and they'd be more afraid to figure it out instead of asking for help because of the fear of being reprimanded and being judged and being made fun of in a way. So for that, an employee would try and seek to get ahead. And a way that they can do it is like the mimicking, like copying what other employees are doing. Being afraid to ask questions, being afraid to ask for help. And that's not a good environment to have, because people shouldn't be afraid to ask for help or be afraid to ask questions about how to properly do something, or they shouldn't be afraid to ask for extra coaching from anybody. In businesses like that causes a lot more issues, simply because of the fear that they have. For shareholders, in the short run, it can look like a smooth running business because everybody's doing the same thing. But in the long run, it can actually lead to high turnover rate within the company. And the shareholders will see that and think that the company is losing good employees because they don't know how to run it. And then it can actually lose the trust of the shareholders in the long run. So in the short run, it can seem easy, like the business is doing fine. They're not doing any extra sales. They're keeping it at a steady pace. They're not increasing any sales. They're not decreasing in sales. And they're just kind of keeping the steady line. Which, yeah, it's pretty good, but when people are afraid to ask for help, or when they're afraid to ask for questions, or when they're afraid to take risks, there's no reward for big risks being taken. So it could lead to no sales, it could lead to the same sales, but in the long run, shareholders will actually be more afraid of that company simply because employees are leaving, and then the cost of the turnover is going to increase. So that means that the shareholders aren't getting a high enough share, or they're having to put in more for their share, which is not favored by shareholders whatsoever, because they are putting their trust in a company, they're putting their investment in a company to get that back and to have a company succeed. So a company that has this reciprocal determination within it, it can actually lose more shareholders than they're gaining because of the loss in trust, because there's no communication, and because of the lack of competition overall. So what extent would efforts to succeed? I think for them to succeed, they would need to be more open-minded. So they would need to be more willing to let employees ask questions. They need to feel that they can, I don't know why it's doing that, sorry. But they need to feel that they can have their employees make mistakes. Their employees need to feel okay to make mistakes. And it's really just human nature to make mistakes, so companies need to understand that people are going to make mistakes regardless, and it's okay for them to ask for help. And you would rather them ask you for help rather than making a mistake and potentially causing a downfall in the business. Whether it's between coworkers, or it's between departments or management, or just the business in general. If there are enough failures, then the business is going to start to fail. So to have success, you need to have open communication. You need to have open-mindedness. You need to be willing to have people take risks, to feel comfortable enough to take risks. And that is my discussion. I hope everybody has a good night, and thank you so much for listening.